So, so this is just to inform you that this whole session will be recorded. You can keep your cameras off or on if you want it, insist it. I can let you in since I'm the host. So, yeah, let's give it a couple of more minutes and then we can start with the presentation. Hello. Hi everyone, and welcome.
Hello.
According to the list, I think that we are almost all in here. I would just like to remind everyone who just entered that this session is being recorded, so later on you will have the opportunity to watch it once again on the website that we're going to upload it to. I will give you the link in the end of the session. So I don't know if everyone is ready. Hope you are. I am. Okay, so first of all, let me introduce myself. Here is Maria. Okay. So let me introduce myself. My name is Lamija Aleckovic. And I've been a journalist for over 20 years. In media, working in media, I started at the Croatian Public Service, HRT, and worked there for 10 years as a journalist, reporter, program editor, and then I left. I lived in Sarajevo, and over there I was responsible for building up the Al Jazeera Balkans TV station. So my background is actually TV, but at the same time, of course, TV and all audio and all multimedia that we call it today and all other platforms actually transferred to digital, to online platforms and social media. So that's what I'm working last few years with as a trainer and a consultant. So here is what we're going to do. We're going to start the presentation. I would just like to ask Senka, if possible, to mute herself, just in case that there is some noise in the background that we don't have to remind again. Okay, here it is. So let me start with sharing the presentation. Please write in the comments if you have any comments, questions, or anything else, and let me know if you can hear me. Actually, if you can hear the presentation sound and everything. Okay. So you can see my screen now, and let's start. So this is a session improving audience engagement from the Media Resilience program. And today we're dealing with innovative approaches to multimedia production. So, before this webinar, I sent out the questions, a short questionnaire for all of you, because I just wanted to know what kind of a background of what kind of knowledge, not only knowledge, but how used to using multimedia you all are. So the questions were easy, the answers were really, really good. For example, 87.5% of you said that you use multimedia sometimes and when it's necessary. I like this part when it is necessary because we are not doing jewelry in here with multimedia, meaning that we are not using multimedia for everything just because we like it. It always has to be connected to the content we are providing our audiences, and it has to illustrate some interesting or important informative parts of the content that we offer. So it is not about having multimedia everywhere, but it's having to it is about using it properly where it is supposed to be and to what content it is supposed to be connected. 12.5% of you said that you often use it in most of your stories. Today, I'm not going to touch base on photos because actually photos are something that we all have, that we all use in our stories on social media and so on. So of course we can always talk about the quality, about the topic, and the framing of the photography or any kind of a stock photography that you have. But at the same time, we are not going to spend a lot on photography because on photos, because it is something that is really business as usual today, and all stories and texts do have it. So, which multimedia formats does your newsroom actively use? As I said, images excluded. So, most of you said that you use infographics, video, less audio and podcasts, though it is in a way similar, if not the same in some cases, and interactive graphics. It seems like it is not being used enough, and it is a very, very interesting multimedia segment. So we're going to talk about that a bit more today, and I'm going to share some even tools for you to try out and to see how you can do it. What is the biggest challenge your newsroom faces in using multimedia formats? Actually, I was really, really surprised that uh, the lack of time to create multimedia is so high, and the lack of access to necessary tools and software. I completely understand that because I say I'm surprised, but at the same time, I'm not, because the work in the newsroom and the capacities that media have, especially smaller media, doesn't allow us to produce enough as we would like, or in the best way that we would like. But at the same time, it has to do a lot of with the processes that you have in the newsroom. We're going to touch on that as well later on. Lack of multi-skilled journalists and lack of technical skills. That is something that you actually have to work on in your newsrooms. You yourselves as individuals and journalists, just to keep up in the loop with all the trends that are going on, especially concerning multimedia and journalism. So here is a little intro for inspiration. I don't know how many of you watched Hans Rosling's physicist, well-known physicist, late physicist, who did a story, actually a video with a lot of interaction, and it is really visually very, very attractive and informative. It's called 200 Countries, 200 Years, and we are going to spend 4 minutes watching this and enjoy. Please just let me.
Visualization is right at the heart of my own work too. I teach global health. And I know having the data is not enough. I have to show it in ways people both enjoy and understand. Now, I'm going to try something I've never done before. Animating the data in real space, with a bit of technical assistance from the crew.
So, here we go. First, an axis for health, life expectancy, from 25 years to 75 years. And down here, an axis for wealth, Income per person, $400,000, $4,000, and $40,000. So down here is poor and sick, and up here is rich and healthy. Now, I'm going to show you the world 200 years ago in 1810. Here come all the countries. Europe brown, Asia red, Middle East green, Africa south of Sahara blue, and the Americas yellow. And the size of the country bubbles show the size of the population. And in 1810, it was pretty crowded down there, wasn't it? All countries were sick and poor. Life expectancy were below 40 in all countries. And only UK and the Netherlands were slightly better off, but not much. And now, why start the world? The Industrial Revolution makes countries in Europe and elsewhere move away from the rest. But the colonized countries in Asia and Africa, they are stuck down there. And eventually, the Western countries get healthier and healthier. And now we slow down to show the impact of the First World War and the Spanish flu epidemic. What a catastrophe! And now I speed up through the 1920s and the 1930s. And in spite of the Great Depression, Western countries forge on towards greater wealth and health. Japan and some others try to follow, but most countries stay down here. Now, after the tragedies of the Second World War, we stop a bit to look at the world in 1948. 1948 was a great year. The war was over, Sweden topped the medal table at the Winter Olympics, and I was born. But the differences between the countries of the world was wider than ever. United States was in the front, Japan was catching up. Brazil was way behind, Iran was getting a little richer from oil, but still had short lives. And the Asian giants, China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Indonesia, they were still poor and sick down here. But look what is about to happen. Here we go again. In my lifetime, former colonies gained independence, and then finally they started to get healthier and healthier and healthier. And in the 1970s, then countries in Asia and Latin America started to catch up with the Western countries. They became the emerging economies. Some in Africa follows. Some Africans were stuck in civil war and others hit by HIV. And now we can see the world today in the most up-to-date statistics. Most people today live in the middle, but there are huge differences at the same time between the best of countries and the worst of countries. And there are also huge inequalities within countries. These bubbles show country averages, but I can split them. Take China, I can split it into provinces. There goes Shanghai. It has the same wealth and health as Italy today. And there is the poor inland province Guizhou. It is like Pakistan. And if I split it further, the rural parts are like Ghana in Africa.
And yet, despite the enormous disparities today, we have seen 200 years of remarkable progress. That huge historical gap between the West and the rest is now closing. We have become an entirely new converging world. And I see a clear trend into the future. With aid, trade, green technology and peace, it's fully possible that everyone can make it to the healthy, wealthy corner.
Well, what you just seen in the last few minutes is a story of 200 countries shown over 200 years and beyond. It involved plotting of 120,000 numbers. Pretty neat, huh?
Okay. So I assume you like this. It has to do with both data journalism and data visualization. But here is one thing, and that is that this video was made 11 years ago. So at that point, it might have been science fiction, but today not anymore, because we have many, many tools that are very user-friendly and handy so that you can do similar things in here. It needs work. It needs understanding the tool, of course. But at the same time, visualizations such as these ones can be much less, with much less effort done today. So How it all started when we were talking about multimedia. There was this citizen journalism concept very, very popular around 2006, 2007. I'm just going a bit back in the history because I wanted it to connect it to everything that we've seen from 11 years ago and then even before that, how it started. So we know that in 2007, the first iPhone was launched, and at that point, as the big tech usually does, they had a long-term plan, and that is to make a mobile phone, a cell phone, to make it a sort of a production tool. Why? Because just a few years back, before that, many media started to have digital platforms to have online and their websites. And what they did have, they had text, but they didn't have enough of multimedia, of photos, of videos, and so on, especially smaller newsrooms that don't have the capacity to have both photographers and journalists on field. So the concept of citizen journalism was something very, very useful because suddenly, all those portals and media started asking their audiences to send them photos, to send them videos, whatever they have of illustrations, illustrating the story, even the breaking news. But at one point, this all became a non-concept. Why? Because at the same year, 2006, 2007, another thing breakthrough, and that is Facebook. Even though it was launched earlier in 2004, around 2007, everybody started being a media for themselves. So the citizen journalism as a concept is returning back today, but in some different forms. But at that point, that try didn't succeed because each person, in a way, became their own media provider, journalism provider, even though I don't like calling it journalism because those are citizens, and there should be a difference between us as journalists and the citizens who don't have that kind of a background. So today's stories are told through multimedia, engaging all senses. We consume them everywhere on all platforms and all devices. That is something that is very important to know when you're doing your work, that people are not always consuming the audio, video, or multimedia on the desktops, but also on mobile devices, iPads, and so on. So that is something to keep in mind when you are recording videos, to record them in 16:9 format, because then it is easier to adapt it to 9:16, like the Instagram Reels and TikTok format. But at the same time, to adapt all the tools that you will be using in the future, they're doing any kind of visualizations or anything, are taking care that it is applicable, that all the multimedia that is done is applicable on all devices, including the mobile. But it's something that I would advise you always to check and to double check. So what does a story need? A story needs, of course, first of all, newsworthy content. And I'm going to repeat this a million times today. Content above all. It is all about content and news that we are providing and the stories, informative stories that we do. So we need a combination always of text, some photos, videos, audios, graphics, and interactive elements, not all at the same time, even though there are some of the formats that can, let's say, tolerate more kinds of multimedia elements such as these are. But at the same time, we have to keep it classic. We have to keep it, again, connected to what we want to illustrate and what we want to give to the audiences on one side, and on the other side, what can be illustrated. It doesn't mean that everything has to be a video. No, you're looking at what can be presented as a video. There are some things that are better presented as only audio instead of a video. So just start, like getting those connections in a right way. And of course, everything that we do today deserves to be and should be in good quality. As I already mentioned, the mobile devices being sort of production studios, like a Swiss knives in a pocket that you have production wise. So all of them really work in good quality. You can produce good quality multimedia today. That is something that wasn't possible maybe a few years back when things were, especially for the social media, pretty dirty, pretty out of focus when you watched videos. But that was the process of media trying out various let's say models of doing video and multimedia for social media to reach out younger targets. But let's get back again to 2007 when we talk about young audiences. Young audiences at that point were growing up with Facebook, were growing up with these, as I said, like not community, but citizen journalism, and everybody was filming. So the quality was really suspicious, especially when you compare it to, like BBC or and the classic media that is really cherishing all the good sides of film language, the video, the framing, and so on. But the point is that that there was one generation that was growing up with their friends' videos being shot in a very bad way. So once the media started having their own social media platforms, investing in them more and more. They tried out many dirty, unpolished content to be produced so that they can fit those tastes of the younger audience. Today, that changed, and the quality is more relevant, and people are getting more used to good quality of multimedia instead of being it really as citizens would do it and not as journalists and professionals. So out of the formats, you're familiar with all of them, but just let's go a bit in depth with the video, the one that is close to all of us. I think that today no media can exist without a video, because in the end, if you're not using it, if you're not like a TV, a small TV station or something that is actually producing video for their website, if you are doing any kind of videos or live streams for your website, that's fine. But first of all, you need to have it because of your social media channels. So as I said, especially TikTok, as the newest platform, let's say, started out as a news backstage concept. Why? Because, as I mentioned previously, many media didn't know how to approach audiences on social media. TikTok, as being the latest one, big media outlets, even Washington Post, BBC, didn't know what their language for TikTok should be. So before starting to learn the tricks and tips from the content creators that are young people on TikTok, they all started with a very conservative way of doing videos from the backstage, because people like backstage to know what we journalists are doing and how we are producing stories. So those were like the videos that were being made at the beginning. But later on, all the media started having their own, like little studios for social media, especially for TikTok, having their branded reporters for social media and so on. I'm not saying that all media have the luxury to do that, because some of the media outlets have like 5 people, so they don't have the opportunity to do it. But at the same time, everything that I'm going to show you, in the end, I will try to demystify it, because it can be done in an easier way. And I know you all seen wonderful things that Washington Post, New York Times, BBC, and all Western media are doing. But I like to say, if we don't have digital departments in our newsrooms, at least we can do something like, for the poorer media, for the poorer people. So we can always simulate that, not in a perfect way, but at least to have some kind of different approaches and multimedia in your media. So you will see that today, mostly the news events are predominant on social media, concerning when I'm talking on official social media channels of various media outlets, and explanatory stories. So all of them will need visual spice. We will see that in a couple of videos that I'm going to show you. And scenario. That is something that I'm also going to emphasize a couple of times, because everything we do now cannot be done if you don't have it planned out and a good scenario. So let's start with a video I selected for just an example on TikTok. So this is from the latest developments in Serbia. So this was a very, very, very short video. Let me just return back. A very short video of maybe 12, 13, 15 seconds that had only video and text. So you've seen a very attractive video of that smoke and everything. Usually people, especially students, as I work at the lecturer at the University of Journalism here in Zagreb in Croatia, they ask me how long the story should last. The story should last as long as it can keep the audiences engaged. So in here, for example, this video, a newsworthy video, very attractive video, could have lasted for 5 minutes, but they decided, because of the TikTok and like the short formats that TikTok favors, to show it just like that with a bit of a text and just the video. Then we have, of course, Instagram Reels as almost the similar logic behind it for creating videos, but here is the thing that I was mentioning, scenario.
Rising because of the bird flu epidemic that's decimating chicken flocks across the country. That's having a big impact on the supply and availability of eggs. Egg prices have risen almost 70% since the beginning of the year in terms of the national loose wholesale, which is the type of eggs that are usually bought by restaurants and diners. In Massachusetts, that price is likely even higher because of the cage-free requirements that Massachusetts requires its eggs to be. So restaurant and diner owners are especially feeling the strain from the egg price rise. Rob Doucette, who owns the Liberty Diner in Newmarket Square, said that this rise is the worst that he's ever seen it. He's had to raise prices on a ton of his centerpiece egg dishes. And even those restaurant owners that haven't had to raise prices are still feeling the strain. Kay Masterson, who owns Johnny's Luncheonette in Newton, said she's tried to avoid raising any prices for her customers, a lot of which are students and seniors, but she doesn't know how much longer that will go on. Have you noticed that your egg sandwiches are costing a little more recently?
Okay, so back in here, maybe you noticed that here is what I said. You have a reporter, you have a lot of B-roll, a lot of videos, a lot of archive of eggs, of farms and so on. He's located in a place, in a restaurant, so he's in the context of the story which he's talking about. Explanatory element, explaining what's going on, explaining and going more in depth of why the eggs are more expensive than they were. And in here, I always like saying, and you know out of your experience when you're watching stories, that having a main character, having people, having the people as main characters and giving us some sound bites is always very, very attractive, convincing, because we want to hear people. In here, you've seen a different form where a journalist, a reporter, is actually citing people, showing maybe their photos, but not having them on record, recorded. So that is another thing that I would suggest when you're doing multimedia. You don't always have to have people recorded, but you can cite them. But of course, I'm not, again, talking about the journalistic values, because I know we all cherish them, so it has to be trustworthy. We have to cite properly, but this is also a way in which you can tell the story as a journalist, because you are relevant and you can stand behind the content that you made. So let's see some YouTube shorts and this example.
It was important for me to come out today because it seems to me that this administration is continuing to suppress rights of its citizens. It's citizens of color, it's LGBTQ citizens, women, and pretty much anybody who disagrees with their policies. There are more people in the district than there are in some of the western states. These people have always been underrepresented, and they have a right to be treated like every other American citizens, to have a voice. And unfortunately, the government right now, both Congress and the Trump administration, can hurt them by taking away funding, which is so important.
Okay. Oh, here is Kruna joining us. Okay, so in here, I hope you noticed one thing that is very, very important. When we talk about video, we talk about picture, but no picture can work without the sound. So in here, in this story that you've seen, sound speaks more than the video itself and than what we are seeing. So always keep in mind when you are doing a story with a camera, with a mobile device, keep in mind that you have to keep quiet while recording because you want to hear the natural sounds. It is called net sound. And that gives additional richness and the experience to any kind of video. And of course, I said we will not talk much about photos, but photos are being used for carousel formats. So here are some of them, usually to make them more attractive, more approachable to people, and to give them an opportunity to enter and to involve with the content better. Music is being used. So again, we're dealing with the sound. So we're back at the beginning. Of course, sound, very good quality of photos. In here, the carousel went by itself, but on any Instagram profile or TikTok or anywhere, you will have the opportunity, the audience will have the opportunity to engage in a way of clicking left, right, and so on. So that is why you can do the text to be a bit longer than they usually are on some other videos. But it is like the storytelling, combining the photo and the text. Okay. And I'm talking about scenario, and I talked about scenario a lot. So let me just shortly show you how much it is needed to do.
So everyone here is familiar with the Starbucks Code of Conduct, right? I mean, we all have it bookmarked, printed, and read it every night like a bedtime story.
It never gets old.
But a new edition just dropped. And it says Starbucks spaces are for partners and customers. Now, this includes spaces like the cafe, patio, and even the restroom. So gone are the days of just going into a Starbucks to use the bathroom or the Wi-Fi. Now you have to buy something like an iced oat milk latte. Just not this one. It's for me. Now, a Starbucks spokesperson says this change is designed to make people feel comfortable and welcome in our stores. And this comes at a turbulent time for Starbucks, like a nationwide strike at over 300 locations, a sluggish stock price for most of last summer, And they even brought in a new CEO. It's actually this guy who used to be the CEO of Chipotle, who's largely credited with turning that Tex-Mex ship around. And Starbucks shareholders are hoping he can do the same thing with their company.
Okay, so that is another story being told with the background, a bit of explanation. You can see Washington Post's little studio for their TikTok and social media platforms. Again, the reporter of Washington Post that is dedicated only to social media. You've seen the elements that had graphics. And when I said, like, let's try to do something that is not maybe New York Times because we don't have the capacities, but let's do it for the poor in a poorer version. And over there, you've seen graphics that are being done, but as well, you've seen like that third little element, and it's having the table where they put printed out graphics. So that is also a way to illustrate something if you don't have like the department, the graphic professional who would do it for you properly. And let's go just shortly to something that we call Gen Z style, short, very to the point, very jumpy, and let's see what it is.
The TikTok ban stands. What? Unless you separate from Chinese ownership, it'll be banned on January 19th. Remind us why. The US government has the authority to ban TikTok based on the national security risk that you could be pressured by the Chinese government to expose Americans' data or influence what they see on the app. And we said this ban is free speech infringement. Right, but we rule this as an act to protect national security. Oh no, it's all over. This is the end? Enough. While this is a bummer, you can still find us on YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels. But we do know that the DC Court of Appeals sided with the Justice Department because they said,
okay, and then the story goes, and so on. So I just wanted to show you a bit and to focus on video concerning the social media. Of course, we do have some long-form storytelling, such as documentaries, in-depth reports that are being done as videos. We have explainer videos. So let me just shortly, actually, I'm just going to go through these other elements and versions of video. Of course, live streaming for news updates. You can do interviews. You can do interactive Q&A sessions. That's on YouTube as well. And we have 360-degree videos and VR, something that is being used today, but that needs a bit more resources and a bigger team of various professionals to do something like that. But it has to deal with immersive journalism and virtual experiences that that multimedia can give us. So just shortly, let me show you the documentaries which are being today done as proper documentaries, but lasting like 4 or 5 minutes max. Okay, let's find one. For example, okay. Didn't open the one that I liked, but let's see this one of 3 minutes.
Southeast Sri Lanka. It's the middle of the dry season. This is the only remaining waterhole for miles around. Mugger crocodiles, giants 5 meters long. This male has been traveling for hours. The waterhole is the only place where he has a chance to catch a deer. A single adult would be enough to feed him for the entire dry season. But hunting prey that knows you're here requires something truly remarkable. He creates a trap. He digs down into the mud. Deep enough to hide beneath the vegetation. Perfect camouflage. He has built his trap right on the water's edge. So it's the first place that thirsty deer will come to drink. These crocodiles have learned to exploit the deer's desperate need for fresh water.
And that's it. You will very often see these documentaries done as real documentaries of an hour that we are used to watching, but at the same time, these are like miniatures out of the whole big story that are being used and filmed in a documentary way. Of course, we're again seeing the BBC example, and they are, of course, the masters of documentaries, but at the same time, many other documentaries are being made by smaller media that are as good as this is. Of course, you've seen the usage of drones, so that is the tech that you might need at one point, the technological machinery and tools that you need to have in the newsroom. And I will just shortly, of course, this presentation will be shared. So if I skip any of the examples that I've put in here, you can always watch it later on. But let me just show you the immersive journalism and virtual experience example, just shortly, one that means like being more involved in the story that has and firstly this means like which part of the story you want to start. You can also have scroll, move around the story. So okay, stories are today like told horizontally, vertically, in all ways, and this is something that illustrates that. And here is a bit of 360. Okay, the story about the bear, and we're playing with the map. Of course, we're not watching 20 minutes. And just show you some of the Okay, let's go to the story. You can select the channel and you immerse yourself into the content. This is just like a game.
The valley is split down the middle by a freeway and a railway. 18,000 cars a day pass on the freeway, which happens to be one car every 5 seconds.
So you can play a bit. This is a very interesting story. You can play a bit with it and maybe check it out sometime. Okay, so multimedia formats audio. We spoke a bit about audio being a very important, if not the crucial element of any video story. But of course, we have podcasts. Many today are saying that they're doing podcasts, but what people and media are doing are actually podcasts, because they're filming it with cameras, and those are actually videos that are being put on social media, on your websites and on YouTube. So it is understandable to call that a podcast for the media. But at the same time, true, real podcasts have narrative storytelling. So it is something that, again, needs a lot of scenario. And I will share only one little segment just to illustrate that it is like a fable when you're talking, like you have the Cinderella story that starts slowly, starts to develop, comes to its the big bang of the story, and then close it again down. So that is narrative storytelling, especially for podcasts. Here is just shortly to see how it is being used. The voices are being used. Okay. The voices are being used, sound bites, sounds, and so on. So let's see if I manage.
Yep.
Okay.
Their accomplishments and the exhilaration and out of World War II work and other SOE women and men agents. I found her polite, gracious, and a good conversationalist. I enjoyed my time with her very much, especially her quick wit and how she shifted in depth with the questions. As we talked about the serious issues, her dark brown eyes were direct and focused.
I was in France. My parents had separated when I was very young. My father went to South Africa and
so this is something that I advise you to listen to, because it is really, really a great podcast telling stories about women who had big roles in the World War II. And in here you could have heard like very interpretative voice of the narrator. You can hear a woman speaking, giving an interview. You can hear something that is very important for radio that we call today audio, and that is explaining the picture. So she said, like her big brown eyes and so on. So that's the storytelling, that's the script writing, and the scenarios should be done. So it is pretty challenging to do a proper podcast as we call it professionally. Social audio spaces, you have Twitter spaces, you have Clubhouse, which was actually a father, let's say, to Twitter spaces, because it became very popular during the COVID crisis, the pandemics. People started using it for hanging out together, and then the Twitter spaces took the concept of creating communities and focusing on audio. Okay, sorry. And of course, we have the text-to-speech voice synthesis for automated news reading. Today, it can be very easily done. You have open source systems on GitHub that you can use for your websites to read out the story, because today that is especially important for the visually impaired people to be possible for them to make it possible to consume your content. And then we have the infographics. We started with very like the data visualization part. So we have, let me just move this in here. We have interactive maps, charts, and timelines, which are very, very interesting in telling the story. So, for example, when doing maps and timelines, there has to be a kind of a difference made. If you're doing timelines, you're doing a story that is connected to time, to dates, and so on, not so much the space. But if the story is told in a way of where the locations are important, then we are using maps. So that is what I said at the beginning. We have to know which of the multimedia tools are we using for what, okay? So let's just see shortly the interactive maps. For example, this one. You can play around with it. So that's it's showing the Manhattan and various areas of Manhattan, how they're being called, among people, what is the history, and then you can read stories about each of these. So it is a very nice illustration and a very nice map. Let's see just the timeline to get the difference. So New York, we want the map. And in here, a brief history of Hispaniola. We want to know how the history developed. So down here, you're having the dates or years and so on. Then you can just scroll, and this is like on-demand content where you can go and then click even in here if you want to skip some parts and go and check whatever. So this is some kind of interactivity that the graphics give us. So this is it concerning the timelines. We use all of them to present the infographics, to present key statistics, facts, and figures in a very simple way, illustrative way. And it's very often, as it is often animated, it gives us this interaction with the audience, giving them the feeling that they can manage the content in their own time, in their own will. So this is the clickability of the content, and infographics are really, really good for that. And as well, any kind of very simple graphics that you are doing in infographics are very easily shared on social media. So that is, again, one benefit of infographics. And then we have other multimedia formats. We have web documentaries. We have various gamification and quizzes today, again, for engaging the audiences, because they want to, that is the way to create the communities, especially if you want some kind of a business model of doing crowdfunding and so on. You want to have your community. You have to engage it with proper and good content, but at the same time, the gamification element is really, really useful. So I'm just going to shortly show you something that was done for US elections. It was New York Times. So after you went voting, it is a kind of a game that you can play and spend your time until the results. I found it a lot of fun. It is called an election distractor. Okay, so when you begin, this is this clickability element. Are you over 18? Let's say yes. Have I voted? No, my circumstances are. Please enjoy the service. Proceed without sound or with sound.
I'm so happy you came over.
And then you have some really crazy, I would even call them dumb videos. So this is something just to make your time go up and pass slowly, or actually faster, before the results. So those are little, fun elements in the news that we can use. Scrollytelling. In 2012, there was the first attempt of an actually successful attempt of scrollytelling. It won a Pulitzer Prize. It is New York Times story Snowfall, where you will see something that today looks like a long read that all media actually does, but the difference was the full screen format. So, and this is Snowfall. You have the text, you follow the story, okay? You have photos and the video that you can embed and play. Then you have, again, the maps that you want to use to illustrate something. The text goes on, the photos. So this is very, very rich in multimedia, so that you can both read and experience the story through different multimedia expressions. But that really evolved a lot. So today, scrollytelling are really, really crazy things that you can do with them, and there are some very simple tools that work on a logic of PowerPoint that you can do such stories. So here again, very short text. Actually, first you have to, in a scenario, in a script, you have to position the photos, the videos, and the visual elements, and then you just enrich them with a little bit of text. Then the whole video, like a short.
Tú puedes marcar la historia de nuestro pueblo antes de María y después de María.
You can walk it as long as you want.
María.
and around the menu, maps as well, so various multimedia elements here.
La dificultad de vivir sin
Audio,
electricidad es
maps,
fuerte.
graphics, and so on. So this is a very nice story for you to check out, maybe. And there are, of course, the quirky, the crazy ways of telling the story in a scrollytelling way, but with a lot of graphical elements. And I think this is, again, one very, very good illustration of how to connect content and the visual elements of the content. So this is Guardian's story about internet, how it is being used all around the world. And you can see the old style illustrations, and then India, like how internet is mostly being used for messaging systems and cell operators. So in here, the whole story about internet in India is done like a chat. Okay, so there are tools for that as well. Easy to use, but again, you need a scenario. You can go to China in here. So this is the selection, the way of involving myself. What is the internet like in China? You see the old way of writing, the fonts. In here at one point, what starts to happen? Censorship. So this is how they illustrate the censorship and how internet is, or better to say, isn't open and free. In Cuba, you remember this, very retro, very slow internet, and so on. So those are really, really nice ways to be creative when working with multimedia. Again, it is all about storytelling. Multimedia is good to package the story, to make it more informative, to illustrate, and of course to sell the story better, because we all want to not sell, but show and popularize our content, because we know we do it well. So for that, we need to know our audiences. We have to use the data and content analytic tools to see which audiences to target on which platforms, with what kind of content and what kind of multimedia that certain target feels comfortable with and can accept it the best. Of course, you always have to take care of the time when you publish content, either if it's any kind of content, especially multimedia, and you have to use multimedia to engage with your communities. What you need when we go back to your answers about what your newsroom needs. Of course, you need multi-skilled journalists. Today, it is easy to be a multi-skilled educated journalist because you have everything on YouTube. You can go to trainings, to classes. It is always good because you will hear something new, you will work hands-on, but at the same time, tutorials are in there, they're out. For any kind of tool, you will find a tutorial. They're all very handy. Some of them are AI-driven, so they're easy to use. You have to adapt your work processes in newsroom, because many say that they don't have time and that they don't have enough space to find in a working day to create multimedia or these very ambitious stories. The recipe for that is to have good planning, short-term and long-term planning. As you plan the stories, what you're going to cover tomorrow in your country, you know what are the main news, which journalist is going to go where, what the journalist is going to make on film. Will he or she make a photo and send it to you? Video, put it on social media. But at the same time, for example, the scrollytelling or documentaries, that is something that you don't have to do from today until tomorrow. You can take time. You can check the calendar and see, okay, December 1st, International Days of Building Awareness of AIDS. You can start working on that story now. Why not? And find some of those big dates where you can produce something, you can give yourself time, you can give one person time to work on it, and then to publish it, for example, on the date when it is appropriate. You need data analytics, tools, photo bases, archives. It is always good. Please take care of your archives, either photo, of course, text, but photo, video, and everything. Archive it because you will need it. You will need it for production of any kind of these videos. For example, eggs. Okay, maybe somewhere in the archive you have eggs, so you can illustrate the story of rising expenses in the farming industry. And of course, branding. You've seen all these videos have their particular branding. On TikTok, yeah, you have the TikTok branding, so it is easy to do. But for any other, you need to promote your media and to start treating branding as as a part of your content, not just the sales point. Okay. As I said at the beginning, maybe 11 years ago, the data visualization was sci-fi. Today, it is not because we have AI tools. Here are some of the tools that I will share with you. You will find it on the shared presentation. Today we can do, like automated news updates, AI-powered and AI-generated video and images like Midjourney, Synthesia, Videofy. This one is in particularly interesting because today to work and to produce good social media videos. Actually, if you have multimedia in your texts on your portal, it will make it easier to put into that tool, and it just collects, like the video, the photos, the text, and the summary from the text, even your branding from the websites, and offers you, offers you a short video that can be used for Instagram or any other social media, at the same time giving you the possibility to edit, to modify it, and to fine-tune it. And of course, AI-generated audio, I will not show it now to you because I think we're almost out of time. But the point is that today you have some news that are being done with AI presenters for social media. But at this point, I would like to remind you all about the ethics. Using AI is something there we have to start from the ethical perspective. Your newsroom would be really, it would be helpful to have ethical guidelines in general, but especially concerning the use of AI. Please do disclose the use of AI and explain how it was used, because, for example, there was a big survey made by the Trusting News and Online News Association. In their research, 94% of people said that they want media to disclose use of AI. So this is not only about transparency, but about building the trust with our audiences. When bidding for any kind of a grant or anything, this is just something that I would like to remind you and to always keep in mind when you're budgeting for your newsroom. Include always the license fees for any kind of tools that you will be using and that you will need for this kind of production. Any tool that you want to use, please do check if it is available in your language. Otherwise, it can bring you more problems than you've spent money. You wasted money, okay? And use GitHub because it is a very good source of open source solutions and tools that you can download and use for any kind of your production, either automatic titling in various languages, either text to speech, maybe some, for example, the WhatsApp communication for this story of Guardian with India. That is also very easy to do on GitHub. You have interview.js. You can download it and start working and use it in your stories. So this is again, content comes first. Be careful and mind the ethics. Today we have various journalistic trends like solution journalism, explanatory journalism, climate or environmental journalism that are very, very important today. And all of them can really be nicely told in multimedia, especially storytelling. Okay, so we've come to the end. I would like to remind you that April 7th is the deadline for the submission for the project. You will find presentations on this link. I will share it I will share it in here. Okay. Please let me know if you have any questions. Just write them down in the chat. I'll go to chat and share this. Okay, so this is where you will find the presentation once it's uploaded, and here is the QR code that you can use to to get to the questionnaire to evaluate this session as well as any other sessions that you're going to have. And here is the link. Maybe it would be good for me to share it with you in the chat as well. Okay. Is okay. Where is the chat? Oops, sorry. Stop share. Okay, here we are. And here is the evaluation form. So I would ask you kindly to fill that in. Do you have any questions? I talked a lot today. I talked a lot about interactivity, and in the end, I didn't interact with you as much as I would have liked, but it is the online version of the webinar, so it's pretty hard to do it that way. No? No questions? Okay, then thank you very much for your time and for your patience. I hope that some of these examples inspired you, that you can start working in those tools that you will find in the presentation. Trust me, it is no science fiction. You can really easily do very creative things today. Yes, there are some licensing fees and so on, but that money might be worth a try. Okay. Thank you very much and have a wonderful week and then a weekend, and good luck with your applications.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.